Welcome to The Explainer. You've probably heard of hypnotherapy, right? Maybe as a way to quit smoking or get over a fear of flying. But today, we are diving into a text that makes a pretty shocking claim that this therapeutic practice could actually be a source of profound spiritual danger. Wow. Okay, so the text doesn't waste any time, does it? It opens with this really startling claim, and this isn't just a friendly warning, it's a flat-out accusation. It reframes the whole practice, not as a potential cure, but as a spiritual harm, with effects that are, and I quote, very long-lasting. All right, so when you hear a claim that bold, you have to ask, okay, where's the proof? What's the basis for this? You might be thinking the author's going to start with scripture or some kind of ancient philosophy, but the foundation for their whole argument, it comes from a place you would probably never expect. So our first section is built around what the text calls the Radium Girls analogy, a cautionary tale of unseen dangers. Yeah, instead of starting with spiritual texts, the whole argument begins with this tragic true story from history, and it's used as the central metaphor for this entire critique. This is the absolutely harrowing story of the Radium Girls. Back in the 1920s, these young women had jobs painting watch dials with glow-in-the-dark paint. The benefit? It was obvious. Watches you could see at night. But the danger? It was completely invisible. They were actually told the radium paint was harmless, but this unseen force was doing devastating damage, a harm they couldn't feel or see until it was far, far too late. So why start with this story? What does it have to do with anything? Well, because this tragedy sets up two absolutely crucial parallels for the argument against hypnotherapy. First, the idea that the appeal of immediate benefits can blind us to invisible risks. And second, it proves that powerful, unseen forces do exist, and just ignoring them doesn't protect you at all. This idea, it's the bedrock for everything else that's coming. Okay, this next section connects that idea of invisible forces directly to the history of hypnotism itself. It's about a shift in theory. And the argument here is that, just like with the radium, a dangerous unseen element was deliberately pushed aside and ignored. You see, this practice didn't actually start as hypnotism. It was first called animal magnetism, and the theory was that some kind of invisible external magnetic fluid was being transferred to the patient. But look over on the right, the theory changed. The modern idea of hypnotism completely ditched the whole fluid concept and said the power was internal, something happening inside the patient's own mind, the power of suggestion. And here is the core accusation from the source material. This change wasn't some big scientific breakthrough. It was a strategic rebranding. The theory was supposedly changed for, quote, survival and expediency, basically to make a skeptical scientific community happy, since they couldn't see or measure this magnetic fluid. And in doing that, any talk of an unseen spiritual influence was just conveniently erased from the whole conversation. So that historical context brings us right here to Section 3 and the absolute core of the accusation, binding the spirit. Citing a text called The Grail Message, the author argues that by ignoring that spiritual dimension, hypnotism is actually committing a really serious transgression. This quote, "This is the heart of the entire warning." It argues that hypnotism is not a neutral tool. It is a spiritual transgression or crime because it binds the spirits. And it makes a point to say that it doesn't matter if the intention is good. But what does that actually mean, to bind the spirit? Well, this slide breaks down exactly what the text means by binding. And it's not just a metaphor. It's a state with three specific and pretty dangerous spiritual consequences. First, the spirit's progress is just stopped in its tracks. Second, its natural protection is gone. And third, it's left wide open, defenseless against other negative, unseen influences. So, if hypnotherapy is the wrong path, then what's the right one? Section 4 presents what it calls an alternative spiritual path. This is the document's proposed solution for what it considers true healing. The logic here is really simple. If the root of suffering is spiritual, then the remedy has to be spiritual too. So instead of hypnotherapy, the text lays out this 4-step path: belief, trust, genuine change, and prayer. This is presented as a way to earn divine help, rather than taking what the author sees as a dangerous shortcut that ends up costing you a heavy spiritual debt. And in the end, this document leaves us right back where we started, thinking about the Radium Girls. It forces us to ask a really profound question that goes way beyond just this one topic.
When we embrace something for its obvious benefits, how should we weigh that against the risks of things we can't see, things we can't feel, and things we can't measure?